Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I am Nerd Doug, and tonight I am going to journey through a sparkling conversation with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Dave, what's up, my man? How's it going tonight?
Good, good. Mondays always have to fresh start, new week, new ideas, and all that kind of jazz.
So
Uh,
D&D Beyond has been like a gold mine for topics the last few weeks,
yeah,
because they just and Wizards of the Coast too. I guess they've just been like putting out stuff that are kind of cool to talk about. We did Vecna with a free download. We did the classic D&D monsters from the WizKids release coming up, and now we're gonna do the Radiant Citadel, the journey to the from the Radiant Citadel. Is that right? Is it from to of
through. That's the preposition.
Yeah, yeah. Which one of them is it?
Yeah, and down below you can find a link to claim your copy of the free first chapter of Journey Through the Radiant Citadel from D&D Beyond. You'll also find a link to Out of the Box Encounters, which has a home through a special portal on D&D Beyond, unlike any other third-party creator, as far as I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the new owners haven't realized we're squirreled away there yet. But
they're gonna root us out. The infestation.
It is still there, and there is a link in the description to go check that out as well.
Yeah, so always you want to go check out those links, and of course, obviously, this is another D&D Beyond powered video. It is a great resource that we love using, and also it makes me really lazy for using other really great resources because I can't just pull it up on D&D Beyond.
Yeah. For sure, and certainly for researching all the content in our videos and web blog posts. And, we have not been unknown to put our own stuff there, whether for public use. There's a couple of things I've made, like magic items and stuff. And for our own games, we've entered quite a few subclasses that we've played in our various stream games.
Yeah, I have to make, I'm on the hook to make a Bloody Mary hag.
Okay. Oh, nice.
We shot the video. Now I just have to make the content to go along with it and put it up over on D&D Beyond for you guys to check out.
Cool. So you pitched this topic for tonight's D&D discussion. So what was your what excited you about it to talk about?
So much like the Mysteries of Candle Keep, I actually like the fact that they give you a location, a setting, that even if you're not into like running the pre-run adventures, the pre-made adventures, you just plop this location right down into your game. And the really cool thing about the Radiant Citadel is it's in the ethereal plane, so it can connect to anybody's campaign, anybody's game. You can be using homebrew stuff. You could be using Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Ravenloft. It doesn't really matter. Well, Ravenloft, it might matter, but it doesn't really matter because it connects to all these places, and there's some cool things in there. It's a very like utopian society, but I feel like there's also enough underlying stuff in order to run adventures out of it. You could totally do the Citadel as your base of operation and going to other places. There's a bunch of adventures that kind of spring to mind from it. So in the first chapter, what you get is you get access to the Citadel itself, which is basically a city, right? And you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 noteworthy sites, right? You get the Concord Jewels, which basically is, I guess, ethereal spaceships or elevators, maybe, because
it took me a bit to wrap my head around. I still was just like,
yeah. So you have the Concordant. Well, I don't know. It's very weird, right? So depending on what kind of game you want to run, like if it is kind of it feels a little sci-fi, right? In the sense that you have these pods that teleport with like cargo and possibly livestock and people to to specific locations and back to the Citadel. And I know they're magical in nature and they're carved out of these giant crystals, but they're like teleportation buses essentially that only have one stop. It's an express.
Yeah, it's like a one-way trip. Those were like probably a good dozen points that I was going to stretch out throughout the hour, so we'll go start checking. I mean, all things aside, whether I, if anything was cool or intriguing, it's certainly a fresh, fun, like fantastic sort of base setting, like you brought up too, for like I'd say, modern day sensibilities. Like I especially because they're focusing on the multiverse, and that's sort of, I don't think because of that, but it's also going on like the MCU. I often think about that when I'm looking at D&D content, in the sense of like, well, I mean, yeah, like, like the quasi medieval world with some magic. It's like, that's cool, and that's been done 1,000 times and stuff, but it's like we've seen like live people in these fantastical, crazy settings, so it's not, and people like bought into it, like average everyday audience. So it's like, well, yeah, man, people want like something that's really cool, and also it's an easy solution to a question that many people struggle with in their campaigns, which is like, well, why is there like a minotaur in this world? There's no minotaurs in my world. It's just like, well, then just have this be your home base. It's just like, it totally solves all those problems. I mean, at the very least, like, whether it's like I like any of the particular elements, me, I love extra planar stuff. So it's like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, people, it's just like a tourist town, right? You think like, oh, it's fantastical. There's still people that just like work there at like McDonald's and stuff like that. And that's what you are when you're a first level adventurer. You're just
it's
in this fantastical place. City. Yeah, for sure.
Double underscore, I'm curious, are you ditching another channel? Yeah, we decided to move everything back over here. It just seemed to make more sense for us. It was an experiment that we tried that didn't really make a difference. So it just ended up being kind of like extra work. So we brought everybody home.
Yeah. I would say, as far as it being like sci-fi type elements, yes and no. I mean, it's magic fantasy more than anything, in the sense of like, well, like sci-fi, and I mean more like Star Trek and Star Wars. It's like there's logical explanations for everything, but like like a fantasy, it's pure fantasy, where it's just like, yeah, man, magic's not some mysterious force. It's like we live in another plane on this like hugely powerful magical crystal city. It's like, so yeah, just lean into it, man. It's like in Guardians of the Galaxy when they went to nowhere. It's like, yeah, we're just a big, huge, enormous head of some celestial dead deity that we built a city of. We mine his brain fluid and stuff. It's like, sure, people buy it, man. Whatever. It's weird, but I love it. I mean, and it fits right in with like Spelljammer, especially in the way they have described it now, where it's like there's no crystal spheres or phlogiston. You just sail far enough and you're in the astral sea, and then all bets are off. I'm sure you could easily dock a spelljamming vessel there.
Yeah,
which itself is not scientific in the least.
One of the interesting things about the Radiant Citadel is, regardless of the type of campaign you're running or playing in, if you just wanted to change it up for a little while, like you could just introduce this. One of the concordant jewels shows up, and you're like, "What is this?" Either like a bunch of people and stuff start pouring off of it, and you have to deal with that, or you find an empty one and you can go to the Radiant Citadel.
And to me, that's just as traditional of a D&D adventure as anything. I mean, just like Barrier Peaks, or I mean, tons of those modules where it's just like you touch a thing and like, oh, you're in 1920s gangster prohibition era for this. And it's like, okay, sure, like that shit just happens in D&D, right? So it's not that weird to just be like lean into it. Like, yeah, sure, get weird with it. Even if, like you said, even if it's just for a one-off, it's like you end up there, you have some adventure maybe, or you go through get involved in one of the. That's the great thing about anthologies, like you just said. There's your like pickup game right there. It's just like pick up the book, find an adventure that you think looks cool. It's like, yeah, sure, make characters that are 7th level. We'll play that one, or even your existing ones. Just find the one that corresponds to their level, and it's like this big crystal materializes in front of you. And as a DM, I mean, yes, there's a thing as player agency, but you can also just have fun with it and be like, you approached it out of curiosity, and you were just transported here, and boom, you're there.
Player agency for me is a hard meh when magic is involved, right? Like like I can talk about my autonomy and my agency, but if I, if I'm walking down the street and I get hit by a comet, no one's going to
Mhm.
care, right? Like,
It's like, well, but I could have used my reaction to use evasion and avoided all the damage. It's like, it's a comet, dude. I'm the dude. Like, there's no,
yeah. So, but no, like so the Keating Gloom, which Chris Hasnick brings up, he says that feels kind of sci-fi to him, but I think that is like a super cool feature because like you could just have the party get spit out of that thing, right? Like if you didn't want to use
yeah.
one of the concorded jewels, they get spit out of that thing. They fall into the city, and now they have to figure out like how to get back, and it might not be easy now because they didn't come here how people normally do.
Now we do stray into like where I am not super crazy about just settings in general. And granted, it's only the first chapter of the book, but it's like I like the idea that the Keating Gloom is just like a vague sort of dark presence, right? And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you could just, you just use it where whatever plot device you want. And there probably is elsewhere in the book, I would imagine. But it's like I like charts and things where it's like, yeah, okay, but like give me some hooks for that,
There's at
or
least
at
one.
least
There's at least one adventure involving it. From
okay,
is what my takeaway from what I read, right? Because in
or
certain places
yeah.
it tells you like here's this thing there.
Or at the very least, like connect the dots for people
Yeah.
to like Tasha's that has the phenomenon thing. They were just like something from here could happen. Those are hugely varied, and there's a ton of them, right?
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Doug. I would not be able to answer this question at all. From
Okay.
double underscore. Is there something like the Radiant Citadel in Magic the Gathering?
Not that I'm aware of as far as the Baldur's Gate Commander set that just came out, but there's a few D&D crossovers to Magic, and there's certainly a bunch to D&D, and I for one think that's cool. So because
Yeah.
I'm not a huge lore fan, but it's like, yeah, I want to see the cool cards that I play with. If I can make my blue black mutate deck a D&D reality, I'm all for it. Bring
Yeah.
over the Ikora set to D&D. That'd be
My
awesome.
my my
All about
son just
monsters
recently got into Magic the Gathering.
through Arena. That's the way
Uh,
to go, man. It's free to play.
no, he's spending money.
Mm.
If it
Cardboard
wasn't
cookies.
Magic the Gathering cards, it would be what are they? Marshmallows? No,
Dude,
there's these stuff down. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm a 45-year-old guy with no kids, man. I have no clue what young people are into.
Speaking another language. The Overmind. Hey there. How much interest do you guys have in other systems that aren't D&D?
Tons.
And would you be interested in looking at something new pre-release? So currently on the channel we've played several. Well, we're currently playing a non-D&D game,
Mm-hmm.
Zoo Mafia RPG, which is a game that we're making. But we've played, I guess in the recent past, we've played Quest, we've played Cipher System, and we played
Cipher System twice, right?
Did we play
your game and then Steven's superhero game.
Yep, yeah. So we played that twice. Squishmallows, that's what they are. Crazy Hermit. I'm like, marshmallows, no, that's for making s'mores and camping. Something mellows. But yeah, so we we play a lot of different games, and over the years we played tons of games on the channel here that are not D&D. Just most of our content is D&D.
I have a great canned response to those kind of questions too. I challenge somebody, I could be wrong, but go and figure out how many Nerdarchy videos are not about D&D, and I bet you there's more of those than most of your other favorite D&D content creators, maybe even combined.
Yeah, so we've played Open Legend on the channel. We've done Marvel Superheroes.
A lot.
Like you said, we've done Cipher System.
Played
there's some Powered by the Apocalypse Dungeon World on here, I believe. There's
Morkborg, Brian Collins' game, Vast Grimm. We're gonna play another one coming up of his that he made.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Gamma World. We played Gamma, the 4th edition version of Gamma World.
That internet.
Oh, we did a Cipher. I'm sorry, we've gotten off topic here. We'll get back to
that's okay.
But we did a Cipher System.
Like the Radiant Citadel, this chat leads to many worlds.
Right. Shadowrun. We did Shadowrun with Cipher System.
Fate.
Yeah, we did Fate. That's all I can think of off the top of my head, but there
Yeah,
might be
yeah,
more.
off the top of your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love other systems.
Yeah.
Just because,
So for the other part of your question, though, do we want to look at a game pre-release? It depends. If you come at me with a 400-page book or 3 books, probably not so much. You know, we're always willing to talk to people about it, and you know, like I even did a consult with somebody. They wanted to do sponsored videos with us, and I was like, "What are you even talking about?" And then he came, he talked to me about his game. I made some suggestions, but and turned away his money because like I'm like, well, I don't think you're ready for this. I think you need to build a community a little bit before you start piling money into this thing. But yeah, so like we are interested in talking to people about games and stuff. Will we look at your game? Have no idea. Shoot us an email.
what was it, Maximum Apocalypse we played? Just because Elf Bait's in the chat, I thought I'll mention that it stood out to me that it made a point to say how big of a radius the light illuminated around the radiance. So it was like 1,000 foot of dim light. So you could totally see those torches and bonfires from far away in the dim light.
Yeah. Although I like the map of the Radiant Citadel, although to me it looks like someone built a city and then like just jammed a giant shard of crystal through it.
Yeah, I thought about that. So that kind of leads into something somebody else that made me think of it too. Like another thing for me personally is like just thinking about this topic in particular. I thought, I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
And so like without a lot of art to go on and things, it's like the more fantastic things get, the less I seem to care. And it's not even like a criticism of this race at all. Like I was just writing a post today that touched on this topic, but like just setting in general, like my own settings, I don't even care that much about those kinds of things. So it's like it's just I just don't care. Like
I got a story about that
concept of like, floating city in the ethereal plane sounds cool, but all the stuff about like taxes and like it being I don't give a shit. I just want to make up my own stuff. But
man, you aren't like all over the basic income.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay, I get it, or whatever, that's great, and fine, whatever, that's cool. I mean, I just don't think, that's not interesting. I mean, and not even those specific details, I just don't care about settings, like we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I like making up my own settings. I might pick bits and pieces. But anyways, as far as that crystal, it says it was carved, there was a fossil around the crystal that was carved in the city. It's like, carved away, they got rid of almost all of it. It's like, there's just too little, where's the rest of it? I mean, not that it's like you know what I'm saying? It's like if it was totally surrounded by fossil, it's like they got rid of a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, but I guess my interpretation was maybe it wasn't like completely encased, but it was like jammed through the huge fossil and then they carved it out. But well, it's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. Like everything's carved out of this fossil.
It looks like that game. Yeah, man, it came out a couple years ago and it had like a chromatic theme. I want to say it started with an O. It was like a D4 based system. I picked it up at Gen Con.
I kind of hope I don't think it will be, but I was kind of hope the incarnates would be monsters, just because they all look so freaking cool. They're like these. So the incarnates, for anyone that doesn't know, they're these crystal creatures, but they're like multiple crystals, and like there's a lion and a tiger, and actually they kind of rule like different factions of the city. But there's the main ones do, but then they have lesser ones. But like each crystal that makes up the thing is like a soul or a spirit. And so they all come together to form like this like ruby scorpion, or no, the ruby pangolin. And then like
I like that there's a pangolin. It's like that's a pretty unusual creature, and it's like an inside joke between Tara and I too. So it's like, oh, that's cool.
And well, yeah, and then like so it has like his collective mind that is like its overarching personality, but then you can kind of access the individual personalities and souls. Like that alone to me is like, oh, these are great hooks, right? Like a reason to go to the Citadel might be to find one of these incarnates and interact with them because they have lore or knowledge that you have, and then they also don't always tell you what you want to know. It's not really Voltron because I don't think they can come apart.
No.
Once they're joined, that's it.
Yeah, and like something like that is real evocative too, because it's like you could imagine it would like kind of tinkle and and make a chimey sound as they moved. And there's ones, I was just scrolling around, and it's like some of them are like a tree.
Yeah.
So most of them are animals, but there's just like other sorts.
There's a handful of ones that are trees or plants or something like that.
So it's pretty cool.
And those are the main ones. I was under the impression there's more of them, but they're not as significant to the setting. So you might be able to use those in other ways. And then they also talk about the one that is a wyvern, but it's inactive, and they're like, we don't know how to turn it on. And like that could be cool too. Like one dude shows up one day and is like, it fires up for no reason at all,
Yes, and I guess compartmentalize like that. That's what I like about stuff like that, where it's just like, I'm not going to use the whole thing and stuff, but like that might just be cool. Like, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like books like that are useful and fun, just to like give you pick and choose little ideas. But like as a whole, I'm just like, I like just cobbling together my own setting as you guys. So they do the same way. It's just like, I might use that thing. That's neat.
So, double underscore. Dave, where did you find the League of Legends subclasses for 5e? I'm glad you did a video to archive it. So the thing about those was it was a collab between D&D Beyond and Riot Games, and then somebody else made them shut it all down because they hate fun, I guess. is the gist that I got from it. So it was up for a little while and pulled down. You can find it archived across the interweb some places, but some crafty individuals have taken them and put them into D&D Beyond Homebrew, so you can actually access them. Because I'm playing the Path of the Depths Barbarian right now in Ted's campaign, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think there's a fighter subclass, and I think there's a rogue subclass. I think the fighter uses guns, and and I kind of like the way they did the guns in it, because they're like special abilities. It's not actually like a weapon per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think
that's cool. That's a good way to implement guns. I think in D&D, where it's just like, just make a class or subclass focused on it, and it's like outside of using their features, it's just it just does, it's like a magic gun
stuff.
Yeah, it's a magic gun. It's just like a pistol shaped wand essentially, and you're like a wand slinger.
And then the rogue archetype throws cards. It basically is modeled off of the Twisted Fate character.
Yeah.
From
the whole thing is based on
also very, very much a Gambit feel to it as well.
Sure. Yeah, man, Gambit totally popularized hurting people with playing cards. Although I would say Bullseye
first
set a precedent, but his weren't charged with kinetic energy.
Gambit also cheats to do it because he charges them with energy, where Bullseye just turns a regular playing card into a deadly weapon.
I remember he once took somebody out by spitting an aspirin at them, and hit him in the eye and stuff, and they broke out. I think it was like on live TV or something like that. Anyways, it's as a contrast with the Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, and again, it's just the first chapter, but other than that, it is just an anthology of adventures. The new post on the site today, I was taking a look at Tome of Heroes from Kobold Press, and I was thinking like something like that to me is more inspirational as like a setting book, because it's like, well, that's all their stuff, and they have a lot of a lot of it is based on Midgard and stuff, and I've incorporated many elements of those into my just like there's very specific subclasses and our own, where it's just like they're super specialized, whether it's like I can't. I'm strong. But like I like those things where it's like there's a mechanical element that inspires me also. Like, ooh, that seems cool, and then just a little bit of lore, and I like that kind of stuff.
The thing, I've used things from Kobold Press and also out of the box encounters where it's just like an encounter or something like that. It's far more useful to me than a full adventure. Although I would say like something like this, or any of the anthology ones they've done. I would much prefer those over, you're gonna play this from level 1 to 10 or 1 to 20.
I do sort of, maybe it's just a trick for myself, but like what I like about, when I clearly am using an adventure from like an anthology is like I sort of have a different GM mode where it's just like, okay, well, I'm obviously reading like the text here, so I have like my DM voice and stuff, and it's just sort of like that's how I do it. And you still wing some of it, but what I like about anthologies, especially books like that, again, it's like I don't care about the setting. It's usually I just pick them up when it's like, we don't, we just want to play something different, or like so and so wasn't here, we had a crucial moment in the adventure. I'll just be like, okay, well, here's the side thing. And sometimes we've done it where it's like, this happened like a couple months ago when so and so wasn't there. It's not like in the timeline, or it is, and it's just like diverts for that thing. So it's fun in a way to just pick up published adventures and just be like, kind of cheesy about it and fun, where it's just like, it's not part of the main whatever's going on.
Yeah, well, you know what too? I think something like this would be great for that, because you could have one of the crystals show up. The players all get on, except for the player that's not there tonight, right? And it takes off without them.
It's sort of like overtly permissioning just the DM fiat that we all know we have from playing, where it's just like, look, if you want something to happen, just have it happen. Like, sure, that can manifest in a bad way. People are like, rocks fall, you die, but it can also manifest in a great way, where it's just like, I'm taking your agency for a second, and here's like a fantastic experience because of it. Enjoy.
Well, I find, and chat, you can weigh in. I find that players are much more inclined to go along with that than if you try to elaborately orchestrate something that they don't actually really have any choice in, but you're pretending they do, because they're not stupid. They figure it out eventually, like, oh, wait a minute. This like, the best example of this I've ever seen was when Ted wanted to run Ghost Walk, but he's like, oh, it'll be so cool if I have them die, and then we're going to do Ghost Walk. And so, like,
I just saw Elf Bates' comment.
What's that?
I just saw Elf Bates' comment. I was like, yep.
Yeah, so, like, he starts setting it up, and, like, it's partial the way through. They know what's going on. That you're just trying to kill us. This is so lame. Where, like, and that this is a long time ago, right? Ted is much more experienced now. Would probably have done it much differently.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just like, you got a cool idea, but the execution in a game where you have a bunch of other people that get to say in parts of it, it's really hard to just finagle things and make it work just exactly how you want, because inevitably it won't. Players will do something you aren't expecting. They'll make that roll that it was impossible, but you gave them a chance at it, so they rolled the natural whatever, and or they'll fail the impossible to fail roll. So
one thing I've learned, and here's a pro tip based on that, is just front load your cool idea, because that's all you can do as a DM, because it's going to change immediately once you start playing. So like, it was probably a while back now, like we had a video and a post about like how to, implement like mind flayers in your campaign. And like my take on it was like, just tell the players you want to run a mind flayer campaign, because you're going to get immediate buy-in right there, right then and there, because they are always going to wonder, is this person controlled by an intellect devourer or a mind flayer and stuff, rather than like that slow burn. It's like, well, if they make this check, maybe they'll figure it out. It's like, just tell them that's what you're doing. Like, when you go to see Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you're not like just like, oh, is this a drama about like a foreign visitor in a strange place learning their customs? Like, sure, like, no, it's what it is, so you're in for the ride.
I ran a one shot called Valhalla Awaits, and essentially the premise for the adventure is you die, but something in your life is keeping you from moving to Valhalla, but like you're an edge case, so instead of just dying and going to hell, you die and you go into this in between place where you have to face these trials. where you get another shot at going to Valhalla. So I started the adventure with, hey, the adventure starts with your character dying. I need you to figure out two things. How did your character die, and what's the thing that kept them from getting into Valhalla?
You're right, yeah.
So and like then I let them narrate their death scene.
Yeah, that's cool. Boy, a lot of great points in the chat going on. Elfbait says it's a great way to eject out of a stagnating campaign. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like that, DM fiat thing where it's just, and I've done that, maybe not with like, extra planar travel, but probably knowing me because I like that stuff. It's actually, one of my favorite things. It's just like, yeah, it's boring. Something crazy happens. Like, you've played with me many times. I'm just describing like a normal everyday scene. And it's like, and also like the sun turns green and, like right before your eyes or whatever. Like, what?
Yeah. Don't make your players, work for the adventure, right? Just throw it in their face.
Right.
Should be like a bucket of cold water.
Mm-hmm. So in that sense, like I like anthologies, but you're mentioning Candlekeep, and you're like, oh yeah, what I like is it gives you a location. Again, that's the least important thing to me because it's like I'm probably not going to use any of that stuff. I don't care.
See, now, like that's something I might actually use and throw out all the adventures, right? Like,
that's funny.
Be like, because like here's a great base of operations. It's got all the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Candlekeep, it's got tons of great NPCs that you don't have to actually make up.
Actually, maybe it's because that's the part I struggle with the most is as a GM is NPCs. It's important to me to like make those up specifically. And that's probably why I like random charts and all that stuff, because it's like, I can clearly remember times when I had like high anxiety because like a player would be like, why is this guy doing that? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea because the adventure doesn't really explain why he's doing that. And I don't really know anything about this NPC. It just, that's all it says is like he's, a local landowner or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's what most of my DM prep is like just making a bunch of NPCs. That's why that Gartania thing was so awesome and easy for me to run, because it's just like, well, if I don't know what I'm doing, another night just shows up. I just spent most of my time like, this night's like this, this guy is like this. And, just had like one little note about each one. It's like, okay, this guy is just all about, sharpening swords or whatever. So in that sense, I don't like, all that stuff is just irrelevant to me. It's like, NPCs and their motivations and how they're aligned. And, again, that's just my own personal quirks. Like, I just don't care about that at all. It's like counterproductive to me. It's like, I want charts of like shit that happens and like ways to resolve it through dice rolls and stuff. I can, you know what I mean? Because it's fun. I like rolling dice and making players roll dice. So
I guess, I don't know. I just make that stuff up on the spot a lot of times, or if like I have something to work with, and then I'll just kind of go with whatever the players are doing. Like you said, like, why is he doing this? Like, I don't know, why is he doing this, and then either make something
that's
up,
interesting,
make them work.
I'm thinking of like for me, like that quest was like, I at first kind of was rocky of just like, what is the consequences? And after a while, it's like, I don't know, they're just crazy, man. Like, it's, I like that it kept forcing you, like, through just random dice rolls, to like, think of something else crazy, think of something else outrageous and stuff. It's like, okay, great. So I like when the things have like tables of just like, mechanical ways to resolve things, or even just, not even so much tables, but just like it struck me the only thing in the whole document that struck on mechanics was like how to operate a concordant drill. It's like that's the most like, that seems like it would almost never happen. Like, why? I don't even know why you include the mechanics, which seemed really easy too. It's just like
make an Arcana check.
Yeah, it was like a DC 14 to like really to control like a planar express thing that is capable of like transporting.
At a certain point, it just seems like you should be like, if they start hitting buttons, this is what happens, right? Like, instead, because again, it just comes down to, because like if you're relying on them to have to be able to operate that thing, and you set a number, then inevitably either one of two things will happen, like everyone will roll until someone hits the number, or, which is not very exciting, Or like if you're like, oh, only one person can try it and you have to be trained. Like if it's super important, then they'll fail it, and then like, oh, now we just stop.
I would rather see, and maybe this would be like higher tier, like tier 3 or 4 material, like an updated carousing chart where that was one of the things, like, oh, you wandered into a concordant crystal and just started pressing buttons and ended up at blah blah blah. Like now you're in the city of brass or something like that. What?
You wake up in a concordant jewel naked and you don't know where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, my home group, like the one DM, that Dragon Heist campaign, we ended every session with carousing rolls, and then he would like we'd start the next one with how that affected like where we wound up in the campaign, and it was just so much fun. And I like stuff like that as a DM too, when it's just like, because it kind of is like a band-aid over it smooths out your improv, because it's like, well, even if you have like a crazy reaction to what happens, it's like it's not something you as the DM, like, I didn't choose for this to happen. Like, we all just rolled on this chart, and that's what it said. So let's do it, man. Go for it.
Don't blame me. Blame the chart.
Like maybe it speaks to me, like having some boundaries with immersion, and it's just like, yeah, I like him thinking about what the character's gonna, how it would react to things and stuff. But I'm also like, it's also still a game, so I like just like, here's the game part, crazy shit happens. You know what I mean? So I guess in that respect, I like things like this Radiant Citadel, because it's so weird and wild. It's just like you said, it's just like
it makes me feel
spaceship shows up.
It kind of feels a little bit to like a campaign of this would feel a little bit like Star Trek to me, where it's like you're always going on the away team, and literally like that's one of the things, like they have an organization. What are they called? The Shields or something?
Shield bearers.
Yeah, the Shield Bearers, which you could be a part of, and they're like, usually they work in teams of 4 to 6, oddly enough.
Yeah, and they just like deploy them to like save or rescue to somebody in a reality.
Yeah.
And they even have like a prime directive where it's like they're not supposed to interfere. Yeah. Jim Davis at WebDM made a great point too about Radiant Citadel, where it's like, it being like this positive, like safe environment and stuff. It's like, it's not hard to imagine like why you would want to defend it and live there. It's like, because it's awesome. Like, why wouldn't I want to, stop incursions of evil to this place? It's like, it's fucking awesome.
I'm now convinced they just ripped off Star Trek. Like Star Trek is like a utopian.
That's an RPG tradition. They were inspired by those themes.
Utopian society that goes out and helps others and explores but can't interfere.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. It's like a fantasy take, whereas Star Trek, I said earlier, is like a more like realistic science fiction. And still one of, if not the only, like certainly rare, like utopian visions of a science fiction future where it's just like, what if people use technology and stuff to just improve everybody's lives, and and also had faster than light space travel when we're introduced to a galactic society.
Give me Star Wars. They did the really important hard work of making laser swords instead of making sure everybody had what they needed.
Yeah. Well, that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That's right. So yeah.
Although interestingly enough, as I understand it, even in deep Star Wars lore, the technology that they use primarily is still based on not totally understood technology from like 10,000 years ago in their own timeline, and it's just kind of weird to me. That's why everything's so like old and beat up and stuff.
I don't know. You're getting too nerdy for me now.
Yeah, sorry. I'm getting too nerdy even for myself. As I said, it's like that's just my vague understanding.
I'm actually just a casual Star Wars fan.
Overall, we're in the needle. I'd say I'm in the middle. It's just like I'm not disdainful of it, but I'm not like super fan either.
Oh yeah. Well, I do like it. I probably
I enjoy watching them, except the prequels, man. I've tried many times. I just did the other night, and I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
But anyways.
We
did have some business that Ted had wanted us to attend to about 40 minutes in now. So.
I guess we might as well bring up the business.
Yeah. So first of all, in honor of free RPG day this past Saturday. We made one of our titles free over in the store. Wizard's Wake is a module with a couple of new subclasses and monsters and magic items and a whole adventure around this tropical island where there's some cool activities to do on the island, and of course a dangerous adventure environment to explore as well. So we're going to leave that up free on the store for the next week. Basically, we decided, right? So you can go over there. It's in the free category where all of our free stuff is, at least until the end of this week. So check it out. And if you like it, maybe get some other stuff from the store. We also want to give a shout out to Days of Nights, a Delaware gaming shop where Nerdarchy's Ted was hanging out this past free RPG day. He brought some out-of-the-box encounters with him, which people were happy to add to their collection. And just had a good time playing games there. And he said it was a great store. Do you have anything else to say about it?
I think that was it. Thanks, Manager Joe.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're in the Delaware area, live around there, or just find yourself there, go check it out. Days of Nights.
I mean, if you live in Delaware, it can't be that far from you.
Hey, we're in Delaware. Probably Wayne's World fans out there. And lastly, a bit of business is the ongoing adventures of Untraditionally Arcane, Nerdarchy's Ted's campaign of all wizards with untraditional arcane traditions. Next session is this Friday on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. So come check out. You get to see my favorite legendary beardomancer of all time, Ordo Wonderbeard, played by mini-trained Jake, weaving his beardomantic majesty all throughout that campaign. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, my understanding is the last episode was very, very interesting.
Every time I've dropped in to see, it's always something crazy going on. I mean, all wizard parties right off the bat, it's pretty cool. And they're all weird traditions, onomancy, and all sorts of things. There's a lot of schemes and threads going on there. It's pretty cool.
So you can check that out. Unfortunately, Untraditionally King usually doesn't make it into the schedule when I put up the weekly schedule, because I'm going to throw Ted under the bus because he never tells me when it is and doesn't set them up in advance. So it's anybody's guess.
Hey, who do you have as a live chat guest this Friday?
This Friday we have I think Aaron Miller. I think his name is Aaron Miller, and he is an artist. He's worked on a bunch of stuff, magic cards and all kinds of cool stuff. And he's doing a deck of wild shape cards. So
nice.
he wanted to come on to talk about those. Brian Collin, friend of ours, hooked us up with him, and
cool.
So we'll be talking about art and D&D and wild shapes and druids.
What the intersection of D&D art and cards is something we know quite a bit about. We got our Mage Forge going on, which there's not a whole lot of time left to pre-order because we're really ramping up the production now. We got all the art. We're going through all the text to make sure it's all punched up.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to be ordering a huge number of the Mage Forge decks. So, pretty much we're going to put this one order in, and we're going to order enough to make sure we can fulfill everybody. Plus, a couple extras in case some get lost in the mail. They always get lost in the mail, at least some, to fulfill those. So. So if you don't get it on the pre-order, you're probably not going to get a chance to get the physicals. Yeah,
and they're pretty cool. I mean, even they're from our own games and stuff, and just going through them again over and over, and just as we are, it's like, and just remembering like those adventures where they got them, where many of them could easily have been via or at the Radiant Citadel, because this would be a great spelljammery type of location of that campaign of mine where a lot of that comes from. It's just been fun to like remember those things, and man, I hope people have as much fun with these as we did, because a lot of them really do have like just interesting things they do, which I always like in a Magic item, both as a player and a DM.
Actually made up a bunch of new magic items. Not a bunch, but a handful of magic items this past weekend for my Under the Dome game.
Oh, how's that going?
Good. I mean, What was I saying earlier? I don't know. Like they were planning a prison break, and like
Okay. Who was in
um
prison that they wanted to break out? Or were
uh,
they in prison?
no. So they want to break out Master Dyson, which is runs one of the gladiator schools,
Okay.
and a couple of one of the characters trained under him, and was maybe owned by him for a little while,
He was in the
but
stable.
he was in the stable. But you were talking about like being vague with things, and I was like, oh, that really came up this week, this weekend, because like so under the dome, it's like I describe things very kind of vague, and then I zoom in on what we're dealing with for the session, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I basically elaborated on the dome, where it's like, yeah, it's not just a dome of energy, but it's like this metal lattice work that looks like a honeycomb structure that the energy flows over top of, and then off of that hangs these spires, right? And then
Okay.
there's also bridges and catwalks and roadways.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know
huge dome, right, for
yeah,
people
yeah.
listening.
So because there's like there's an underground section, right? That there's like basically a city underground, and then there's the street level city, which is like all the refineries and factories and basically where all the poor people live. And then up in the spires, which is this upper tier where they basically hang like wind chimes from the top of the dome, are these spires of the nobility and the grind barons.
Mm-hmm.
So so the players wanted to figure out how to break this guy out of one of those prisons. So I was like, oh, I guess I have to design the prison. So I did, and like I didn't go too crazy with it, but they're like, oh, this is impossible. I'm like, oh, maybe, I don't know. It's up to you guys to figure it out. They did get him out eventually, but it wasn't going to be easy, right? So I have what we call upper spires and lower spires, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the upper spires kind of go up towards the dome, and they kind of end like they're kind of steepled, end in points, and then the lower spires hang down from underneath of like those other structures, those catwalks, those bridges, other spires, and they kind of go down. And so one of them was like we're just calling it the prison spire, and it's just 10 levels down. So the first level is like a command center processing, and then 9 levels of cells. And then there's like the opening to that has a chain that a cage is attached to, and it goes over to basically like a guard tower. And the only way to operate the cage is from the guard tower. So the prisoners can't just get out. And it's beneath the one of the barons' houses, but it doesn't connect to it because if the prisoners escape, they don't want them to just go up into the noble house. So they're like, oh, how are we supposed to fight our way through basically 10 platforms of guard stations? I'm like, I don't know, that's a player problem. I just create the problems. It's up to you guys to figure out how to get around them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's just like there's no a force compelling them to even do that. I mean, it's just like, oh, we should break this guy out of prison. And maybe they didn't know that stuff, and they learned like, oh, maybe we can't. Like
Yeah. So
it's like you have to have some expectation as a player that's just like, well, maybe things based on what we learn, we can't just do whatever we want.
yeah. So Chris has Hausnick watch the documentary Eye of the Beholder on Amazon Prime. It's all about the development of growth of the TSR art team. We don't.
Me and you were at the premiere.
Yeah, we know a little bit about that. We went to the premiere at Gen Con. I think I watched it like twice now at conventions.
Oh yeah, I watch it every year and again. It's cool.
Yeah, just because we know Brian Stillman and Seth
Polanski.
That's it.
And Kelly, what's Slagle. Slagle, yeah.
Yeah, so the team behind it. We've had them on the channel a couple times.
Yeah, several times. They're working on a Magic the Gathering style documentary in that same vein, which I'm looking forward to because I'm a huge Magic fan too. So.
I remember when they first started working on it. It's like, I got another one we're working on. It's really going to be big, but we can't talk about it. I'm like, oh, Magic the Gathering, huh?
Oh, well,
you were probably talking to most
shit.
of those artists anyway.
Yeah, really. But yeah, that is a great documentary for sure. I watched it a few times.
For sure. Also, when you're at a con, you've been doing a lot of walking. It's a great excuse to just sit someplace for like an hour or 2 hours, however long it is, and not do anything.
One thing I found interesting about the actual first chapter that I have here's a little teeny note to myself. It's only been like reoccupied and settled for 250 years. So I was like, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, really that long of a time in like the cosmic scale. And it's sort of like, the leader of the city is essentially like an ancient dragon. It's like, like I was thinking like there's probably living elves who would have been like, yeah, I remember when it was just a big empty rack or whatever. Nothing there.
Yeah.
Like not that long. It's all actually is that mirroring our own US's length of time existing?
So don't ask me real life history questions, Doug. I know nothing about the real world. No, so like that is kind of interesting too, because it's like, well, what happened to the people that were there before? These are other mysteries to be solved. Does it have something to do with that the gloom thing? So there's definitely, I feel like that's just more plot hooks to be thrown out there. Or, if you run into someone that's actually been there before, that could lead you in a whole bunch of adventures and what happened to them all.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So it was reoccupied by descendants of those original civilizations that lived there, I guess, long ago.
Yeah.
And it's like it's spoken of like it's this myth and all that stuff, which by human standards was, but it's like there could totally be like one of those people was an elf, was like, yeah, I just saw him at the coffee shop. Like he was a kid then, and he's kind of older now, but yeah, we're dwarf. I mean, it's like it's like that wasn't that long ago for them, right?
Well, I guess, I mean, I don't remember the particular section. Are you saying it's been re-inhabited for 250 years?
Yes, right. So it was but
who knows how long the gap was before that?
All right, but I'm saying it was reoccupied by descendants of those people. So it's like those actual people could still be alive now, like if they were elves or dwarves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They could have been the ones that found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
It's like it's not like some far-flung mystery. It's like, yeah, I know that guy. Like,
when I was talking about earlier about the adventures, so there's a chart in the beginning. It's only a D4 for some reason, which is a little odd because I thought there's a lot more adventurers. But one is revolutionary from San Catalan, I'm probably butchering the hell out of that, sorry, tries to hire the party for the court in the Court of Whispers to uncover the plot of a corrupt council member in their homeland. See adventure Fiend of the Hollow Mine. The committee that oversees the trade discal asks the party to negotiate with Atash, the angelic ruler of Akaran Sengar, for increased trade with the Radiant Citadel. See adventure Shadow of the Sun. And then the Dawn Incarnate of Atuga declares it is willing to reveal the location of one of the missing civilizations in the characters if the characters prevent an alien evil from encroaching on Antigua. See the adventure Orchids of the Invisible Mountain. And number 4, the Keating Gloom edges towards the Radiant Citadel. The speakers for the ancestors hire the characters to find out what is causing the cyclones approach and reverse it. Now that one doesn't actually so I was completely wrong because that one doesn't actually name an adventure.
I actually had a little like that was one of the parts I particularly didn't like at all about this whole document. I was like, the first two sound totally boring to me and flats. And then the third one, it's like, okay, that like, is that another hook then exists in the adventure if you went and saw it? Like, so there's just two. So it's like, if that's the case, that's kind of useless because it's like, well, if I was going to play that adventure, then that's the hook for it. And then yeah, the other one is just like we were saying earlier, it's like this big evocative thing, and it's just like find out what's causing the cyclone's approach. Like, well, what is causing the? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other one. Doesn't appear to be connected to an actual adventure.
I could do that myself. Like, know, a long time ago, this guy I knew. This is back when I made that movie, which is over on IMDb, by the way. If you have my own page, was like kind of a dopey fella, and he told us once that he had this great idea for a movie, and he's like, it's going to start off like slow, and then something really crazy is going to happen, and then it's going to like build to this exciting conclusion, and then end. We're like, that's just like every story.
It's just every movie, but if you
want
to make it better,
like, there's
why
this
don't you
big
start
dark
with something
force.
exciting?
There's a big dark force, and like the adventurers are hired to figure out what it is. It's like, that's every adventure. Like, what is it? Like, I don't know. Like, that was where I made a note. It was just like, where's the charts? Like, can you give me some ideas what that might be?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, the first two, he kind of chuckled. Did you think I was going to say that? Because I was like, yeah, it's like doesn't sound like there's any fighting monsters involved, and just kind of like, just boring like that stuff. It's like that doesn't sound like anything I want to adventure through. Go to a committee meeting. Like, yay!
Yeah, I mean, and also like, now I don't know if it's like something that was edited, but you would think they would like, if you're gonna do that, you would have just did that for like all the adventures,
right?
Maybe it's just edited down as a sample, but I don't think so, because it seems like you're getting the first, the first chapter.
Mm-hmm. And they're getting all that delicious time on site.
They are getting the time on site. That's true. I mean, I've had this document open for the past hour.
I've had it open since like yesterday afternoon in a tab, just because I was like, it's so hard to find it even once you've claimed it. Like we said, it's like, where is it?
Yeah. And of course, folks, you can go over to D&D Beyond and claim it for free. But it said you're going to have to bookmark the page.
Yeah.
So the way I've gone back to it is if you go back to where it says, hey, get the thing for free, and you click on that, it'll open up to it.
But that will only be there till tomorrow. So the 28th.
Oh, does it expire?
Yeah, like the Vecna one is over too. I think if you search like Vecna dossier, it'll come up and probably.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know. Like, it's the first chapter of the book, so maybe it won't be available after that unless you have the book unlocked. You know what I mean?
I have no idea, but if you go get it now, then you'll have it, and you won't have to worry.
Yeah, then you won't have to worry about it. And maybe you'll find some little nugget of inspiration for your own games in there.
And I think for free, like, this is awesome.
Oh, sure. Yeah, same with the Vecna thing. Yeah, I'm not like, even if you just saw one thing that was like, that's cool, it's free.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure. And it's a decent amount. Like, I don't know,
mm-hmm.
because it's on D&D Beyond, I can't really tell how many pages it is.
Yeah.
Because it's just the infinite scroll, but it seems like it's a decent amount, quite a few.
Right.
So, I don't know. I read through it. I got ideas. Yeah. You guys should go grab it. You'll probably get some ideas as well. It's nice because it can fit into any campaign. And also, you could, you could also change the worlds, right? Like, you don't have to use the ones that, were written into this adventure. Like, if you wanted to do different civilizations and different cultures, you could absolutely do that. And change how it all works.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's totally worth mentioning to people that maybe not have the experience DMing and stuff or whatever. It's just like you can just change whatever you want. Like we were just saying, it's like big city built in crystal floating in the ethereal plane. I'm on board. Like all the other stuff, I don't give a crap. But I'll take that and put it in my game, sure. And it's not going to unthrow everything off or something. It's like, but it only works if you have all these things and you remember all these details. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I thought the deactivated Wolverine one is kind of cool too, because I'm like, what if that wakes up and it's like evil? Like, it's the only one that's actually malevolent.
And like you said earlier, it's like each crystal is like a different spirit of something. So like that's kind of evocative. It's like, that could be a series of adventures related to that. Maybe people are trying to revive each of those spirits, like cults and stuff like that, in order to raise this dark dawn incarnate, a dusk incarnate, if you will.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or someone stealing the gems from the incarnates.
Oh yeah, and they have like powers and stuff, so you got to get
Yeah.
them back or whatever. Who knows? Yeah.
So I feel like there's tons of fodder. There's lots of fun stuff. A quick reminder that D&D Beyond is a sponsor of Nerdarchy and this video, so we want to thank them. We will be back tomorrow night with our Zoo Mafia game, which I did see your comment in here. Brimstone, yes, Brimstone. Glad you're enjoying the Zoo Mafia content and excited for the game. We've been excited to work on it and release it. So we have to finish up Mage Forge, and then from there we're gonna start working on the quick start rules. And once they're done, we're going to release them first on the Zoo Mafia newsletter. So if you belong to that newsletter, you'll be able to get a free copy of that. And you guys will get it first. We'll release it first over there before we start putting it in other places. And then, as we mentioned, Friday afternoon, 12 p.m., we also have the live chat. We'll be talking to artist Aaron Miller. And then Friday night, 8 p.m., the untraditionally arcane game. So come on back. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.